Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn told Morgan Stanley that bankers are right to regard him as a threat because he wants to transform what he cast as a rigged economy that profited speculators at the expense of ordinary people. Morgan Stanley last month warned that political uncertainty in Britain was a bigger threat than Brexit for some domestic investors, given the risk of Mr. Corbyn winning power and radically changing Britain's free market economy. "Bankers like Morgan Stanley should not run our country, but they think they do," Mr. Corbyn said in a video posted on Twitter. "So when they say we're a threat, they're right, we're a threat to a damaging and failed system that is rigged for the few," he said. Since Prime Minister Theresa May's botched gamble on a June snap election lost her party its majority in Parliament, some investors and many of Mr. Corbyn's political opponents now see him as a potential Prime Minister if the government falls. Mr. Corbyn has cast bankers as the villains behind the 2008 financial crisis and promised to increase taxes on the banks and investment funds which trade out of London, the only financial capital to rival New York. Mr. Corbyn said banks such as Morgan Stanley were speculators. "These are the same speculators and gamblers who crashed our economy in 2008 and then we had to bail them out," Mr. Corbyn said. "Their greed plunged the world into crisis and we are still paying the price." In a note to clients last month, Graham Secker, Morgan Stanley's chief European equity strategist, wrote, "We could see the biggest shake-up in the political backdrop since the 70s. This is much more scary from an equity perspective than Brexit." The bank said the double whammy of Brexit and a Labour government together could prove toxic for UK stock markets, with the bank's full-blown bear case leading to an economic recession and a 3-2 PC crash in the FTSE 100 index by 2019. Mr. Corbyn's manifesto promising renationalisation, higher public spending and tax rises for the rich won him 4-0 PC of the votes cast, while the Conservatives won 4-2 PC.